So let's get right into it. Investment. How much have we been able to get as a nation in 2024? What were the factors responsible for the outcome? How can we do better in the coming year? Business environment this year was particularly very challenging. A lot of people thought that 2020 will be the most challenging year in history, but 2024 said, well, hold on a minute, I have something in store. But let's take a look at how that environment fared in 2024. We're joined right here in our Lagos studio by Mr. Warri Refinery, who is a DG, Nigeria Employers Consultative Forum, NECA. Good morning, Mr. Warri Refinery.
Good morning. Thank you for having us and compliments.
I wish you the same. And joining us virtually is Dr. Sonny Ofe, who is an international business communicator and senior aide to the Delta State Governor. Joins us from the Netherlands. You're welcome to the morning brief, but sunrise daily, I shall say.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, that was always inevitable. But let's get right into it, and I'll naturally begin from you, Mr. Onyeride.
Yeah.
If you could describe the business environment 2024 in one sentence for you, what would it be?
Mixed fortunes. Basically, it's a ball of mixed fortunes. Some positives, some very challenging situations that businesses start to navigate, and also some glimmer of hope that probably 2025 will herald the benefits, at least some shades of benefits of the reforms that started in 2023. So it's a mixed bag of fortune for most organized businesses.
I'll come back to you on that one just to take it further, but let me go to Dr. Ofe. Same question to you. And now you operate, I would say, from the government perspective, or you have the benefit of the government side of things, particularly at the subnational level, which is vital to this conversation as well. So same question, if you were to describe the environment, the climate for business in Nigeria, or zoom down to Delta State in 2024, what would it be?
It was volatile and, it was volatile and unpredictable. Just like my friend have said, it was also misfortune as well, optimism, pessimism, but at the end of the day, it's a country. So, and we just have to build on the gains that we've achieved so far.
Interesting. So let me come back to Mr. Onyeride. You said that mixed bag, the positives and the challenges. So the positives, let's start with that. What was the positives like? And then the challenges.
I think the positives, we can say there's a bit of deepened engagement between government and organized private sector. Unlike before, when people hardly listened to you in government. So this administration, somehow they've created a platform where we can engage. And that engagement is multidimensional, multifaceted, and across ministries also. So the potential for your voice to be heard and for you to influence policies and regulations is also enhanced when people are listening. So one other thing that I think has improved a bit for us was the context of the refineries that started working. We had Warri Refinery came on board this morning.
Yesterday.
Yesterday, we have no reason to doubt, but the report is that it came on board yesterday. The Dangote Refinery was a big one for us, even though part of the negatives that we come to, I think, also has the shade of the Dangote Refinery. And the Port Harcourt Refinery also came on board, which we believe strongly that those three combined might also affect or reduce the pressure of forex, since the potential or the possibility of importing fuel will also reduce.
Pardon me to butt in there, because you mentioned the Warri Refinery, and I think it would be remiss if we don't bring in Dr. Ofe on this one. So quickly on that point, is that part of because you said that this year has been a year of volatility, unpredictability for you, mixed bag essentially. So the Warri Refinery coming on stream quickly, is that a positive? Is that a negative? Is that something that you also doubt as well? Hey, it's your backyard, or did I say you're even the host, as it were?
No, we've always been advocating for the functioning of all our refineries in order to meet our domestic fuel consumption and also strengthen our devalued currency, because like the other my friend just said, it will reduce the pressure on our foreign exchange. So coming in from the Warri Axis at this time, it's very significant because His Excellency the Governor has been very much focused on infrastructure. There is an ongoing project now within those Warri Axis to expand the road to create flyovers. This will help immensely in easing logistic challenge that we face. So it is coming at the right time, and the government of Delta State is very much positioned to support that. And of course, it will increase job opportunity, will create job opportunities, and engage most of our young population that are jobless at the moment. So, but I think for me, it is time for us to even look beyond the oil and gas sector and start to look at how we can tap into other potential mineral resources and agricultural potential that we have in Nigeria as a country. So the emphasis on oil and gas is being overflogged, even though it is part of what will help grow our GDP.
But do you have your doubts, that people who have expressed doubts about this particular project coming on stream, whether or not it is what it's painted to be? Well, again, do you have your doubts? Someone close to it?
Well, in fairness, I've seen the political will from the president, particularly with the international engagement that he has had with several countries. He was here in the Netherlands in April, and he talked about food security, agriculture, and of course we know that the Netherlands are currently the second largest exporter of agricultural produce in the world. You know, in 2021 alone, they made a whopping $108 billion from just the agro sector. So I think that there is a lot we can gain from that sector. So looking back as to whether I am optimistic or not, we just have to remain optimistic and see this process go through in a way that until we begin to see the doubts openly, I am optimistic at this stage.
Okay, so let me come back to Mr. Onyeride. I just wanted to get the benefit of proximity, which he has for Delta State. Right. Now, this conversation is really about you know, the business climate, how well we're able to attract investment. I know there's always a lot of talk about, you know, capital importation, but there's also the capital resident at home to how well it is faring, because people would look at the ones who are resident and say, are you doing well? Is this a good time for me to come or not, depending on your risk appetite?
Absolutely.
He mentioned something interesting, the president's trip. The president has been all about, you know, marketing Nigeria, at least from what we hear. This year alone, he has been to 18 countries so far. Last year was 17. Right, so put it together, the president's trips are near 40 trips since he became president, and he's able to say he's been marketing Nigeria to the people. But you operate here.
Yeah, absolutely.
This year saw some exits, and I think these are part of the mixed bag you talked about. So let's talk about the other side. It's good to be heard. Whether or not they listen and implement, that's another thing. But let's talk about the pitfalls, some of the challenges now.
Well, some of the challenges, energy costs remain a big issue for businesses. We had expected that you allow businesses to breathe before you add more burdens, but the sharp and astronomical increase in cost of power, electricity, because most businesses hardly you hardly find them in band C or band D areas. Most of them are in band A areas. So that shuts up significantly the cost of doing business, and the consumer will always suffer for it, whether we like it or not. So energy cost was a big issue. The regulatory environment wasn't as expected. While serious effort was made by PEBEC, by some ministries to handle regulatory issues, but the regulatory issue still remains. You know, as we are dealing with it at the national level, you have subnationals also come with very stringent regulations that sometimes you wonder if it is not a deliberate attempt to sabotage the overall or the aching objective of growing this economy.
I'd like to get an instance of some of these, the policy environments that you talk about. Is there an instance that comes?
Let me give you two instances that came to mind readily. Regulators, from our perspective, is supposed to enhance businesses, to enable businesses. While you have one or two businesses that might fall short of regulation, the idea really and the idea of penalties is not really to kill the business, but to penalties we believe should be corrective in nature, and the regulators helping those businesses that are falling short to align back to regulation. But what we have seen is basically regulators focusing more on penalties, focusing more on how much they can get as revenue for penalties without considering the consequential effect. We have many issues this year, unfortunately. We have the FCCPC, whose rule is contradicting some other regulatory agencies.
But they did to protect the consumers.
Yeah, they are there to protect the consumers, absolutely. There's nothing wrong in protecting consumers. In fact, we preach responsible enterprises. But when the rule of FCCPC, just as an instance, not picking out FCCPC, is now contradicting the rule of another agency like SON. So a business received clearance or has gotten clearance or approval from SON to go ahead with this, and then FCCPC comes or another agency comes and says, look, the approval you've gotten from SON doesn't apply to us. You still have to get a duplicated or similar approval from us. It puts the business in the middle. And at the subnationals, a typical example that we are trying to resolve currently is the Lagos Water Regulatory Commission, which speaks directly into the heart of the issue of FDI. There was companies should pay for water abstraction, which is quite contentious in the first place because we believe it's the responsibility of government to provide water.
But I think that that part is about you have a limit, right, which you're meant to take. And I think that the contention was some of these companies were taken beyond what they should have taken.
Their abstraction was measured, because there's so many issues beyond this. Now, if they are taken beyond what they are supposed to take, there should be a verifiable measurement to say
empirical data, right?
Empirical data. And now, if there are infractions, I think there are more ingenious, innovative ways of calling them to order than threatening or going public with a ceiling order, because the world is a global place now. So if I'm an investor planning to come to Nigeria, and I woke up one morning to hear that some global brands have been sealed up by a regulator, what does that communicate to me actually? It doesn't communicate confidence. It doesn't communicate appropriateness. It doesn't give me that kind of confidence to come to an environment where arbitrariness can just hold sway. So whether the president traveled 100 times across the globe, which is quite good in itself, but we have inherent contradictions that are negating those issues. So coming back to the comment you made, that it's one thing for you to engage, it's one thing for your engagement to yield positive fruit. So it's one thing for the president to travel around the world, risking his life, risking his energy, traveling around. And we have inherent contradictions in the regulatory framework that is also negating the efforts of the government. So those are the issues, big issues as they were.
Well, not to take away from that response, some of those trips are the most comfortable trips, really, you'll find. So
I wouldn't know about that.
No, just to say, I mean, if you're traveling the presidential jets, you know how comfortable that can be. And of course, there's a protection around. But the point is taken.
I haven't gone in one.
Okay. But the point is,
I'll join you.
But this conversation really, as I said, is about the FDIs. And if you look at capital importation, Q1 seemed to do well, $3.4 billion, right? But then Q2, it dipped $2.6 billion. Q3 dipped further. And then subnationals, you find out that just about 5 or 6 subnationals were able to attract capital importation. And MBS said as much. But let's go over to Abuja. My colleague Kayla has some more questions for you. Kayla, over to you now.
Indeed, that question about subnationals, I think you took the words out of my mouth right there. Looking at FDI from the state levels? I mean, looking at the figures, and I'm going to pose this question to Mr. Ofehe, Mr. Sonny Ofehe. In the second quarter, and I need you to listen and maybe corroborate this if you have a different point of view, you can also express that. Apparently, in the second quarter of 2024, foreign direct investment in Nigeria was as its lowest ever, the lowest ever recorded in Nigeria, according to the NBS, $29.83 million. And that, according to this report, was a 65.33 drop from the same period in 2023. Now, we've heard, at least in the course of today's conversation, some of the issues that could have caused this. I want to be able to get your thoughts on the state budget, from, let's say, Delta State, for instance, and maybe all the other state budgets that you've heard. Are these budgets positioned to make sure we don't have a repeat of this in 2025?
Well, I cannot speak for other states, but I can speak for Delta states. The current administration is very much focused on improving those statistics that you've just mentioned in terms of capital importation into the country and into the states. So, and one of the things you must critically look at is infrastructure. I mean, you don't bring in foreign direct investments, into a state that does not have good roads, that does not have all of the paraphernalia of that can support the economic indices, So Delta State itself has critically focused on infrastructure, making sure that we have good roads. We are dealing with the challenge of flooding, and also repositioning our institution in a way that, when those foreign direct investments start coming in, they will have a good platform. Now, we've just talked about the president traveling around the globe. Your colleague just said about almost 40 countries in less than 2 years. In as much as we acknowledge that, there is also another challenge that comes with diplomatic shuttling. And that is the fact that until now, this administration has not appointed a substantive ambassador to any of our 110 missions across the world. And that will not help whatever, incentives the president is giving out to attract investors into the country. So that's one thing we have to look at, because it is not what you discuss on the table while you are there at that presidential level. It is what happens after you leave. If the necessary machineries are there, then of course you have to look at the issue of security back home. You have to look at the issue of our fiscal policy, the inconsistency in our naira, crumbling. That is also affecting. And also, most importantly, what most people don't look at that is discouraging foreign direct investment is capital repatriation. If you bring in, if any foreign company comes into your country and they make profit, they want to have an easy way of repatriating those funds to their home country. That is also a challenge. So what Delta State has done through this administration is to ensure that there is no borrowing, is to ensure that all of these logistic challenges, infrastructural advancements are put in place, because there are currently ongoing talks in other parts of the world, and the interest is there for people, for companies to come into the state. So we're looking at changing that statistics in the coming year. So like I said, first you have to prepare, and then when those things come, all of the challenges would have been dealt with. This is where we stand now currently. But like you said, it is a shame that Nigeria, being we have everything to attract investments. We have the natural resources, we have the human capital development, and we have the it's cheap labor. And most of these multinational companies are actually shifting towards areas where they can maximize profit, and Nigeria offered that on and of course, not just, record shows that by 2030, the youth population will hit 2 billion, and Nigeria is enjoying a chunk part of that population, and not just youth population, but intellectually sound youth population, which can be used to drive our economy to the promised land.
Mr. Oyerinde, I wanted you to get your thoughts on where our subnationals are when it comes to attracting foreign direct investment, especially in the states across the country, knowing the indices on ground and what many states are having to deal with at this particular point in time, we've listened to a lot of them release budgets. I want you to juxtapose that with the budget of the country, which many people have said is actually less, you know, if we look at it in terms of its dollar value, looking back at 2023, you know, seeing that it's less than what we had in 2023. Now, if we're trying to build this market, trying to increase FDIs, what do you think states can be doing? And also get your thoughts. I mean, I'm packing in a lot, as Kayode will say. Also thinking about the fact that you have a new minister of trade and investment. In what areas can she be helping these bottlenecks that I've heard you talk about since we had you on this program? You know, removing those bottlenecks so that we can attract more FDI. And then what states can be doing to increase FDI, looking at the budgets that they've released and the budget that our country has released.
Thank you for those questions. I think first, it's quite unfortunate that the states are not living up to expectation, at least the expectation of those outside the state, considering the potential that the first speaker mentioned, the huge potential to attract forex and FDI into this country, and breaking it down to the basics, you know, so that we don't speak above the head of our listeners. I think for you to attract FDI, you know, according to the World Bank Ease of Doing Business the index, there are some basic things that you just have to put in place. And I mentioned one or two of them. Your regulatory and legislative environment must be friendly to attract investment. Paying taxes is part of the index that the World Bank mentioned. You're paying taxes, is it easy? Is it effective? How many taxes are you paying? Thank God the Taiwo Daily Presidential Committee is addressing the issue of multiplicity of taxes, protecting investors. Are your laws sufficient enough to protect investors? How are you able to improve investors' confidence? Well, those are key parameters. If you don't address all those, you know, we can travel the whole world looking for foreign direct investment. If we don't deal with those contradictions, most likely those things will not happen. Now, what can the minister do, the new minister for industry and investment? We must commend that the human's job she did when she was at PEBEC, you know, because there was a deep engagement with the private sector to address some of these regulatory bottlenecks. Now being the minister, I think she has more powers to do quite a lot. And beyond her, I think she also needs more collaboration, interministerial collaboration. Because if you want to address the key issues, power is part of the key issues. Power is beyond her ministry. She has to liaise with the Minister for Power to deal with those issues. Security is part of the issues. She has to liaise with the Minister for Defense or Chief of Army Staff to address those issues. So a deep and well-coordinated interministerial engagement around government will also help in dealing with these issues. Whether the FDI will come or not, I think those parameters that we mentioned, we just have to deal with them and deal with them carefully. And lastly for me is this. You know, if I'm an investor, just putting myself in the shoes of an average global investor, you know, I probably will not go to Nigeria Investment Promotion Council to ask for, I might sample their opinion to know what exactly is the climate like. I might go to the ministries to ask, okay, what are the issues? What support can you give me? But the most credible testimonial I will get is from a local business operator that is facing the challenges on a daily basis. Is probably the first person I will ask, can I bring my hard-earned forex to Nigeria to invest? It's testimony of how good or how difficult it is to operate will influence my coming or not coming.
So let's get a testimony. Are you breathing? How well are you breathing if you are, as businesses?
We are hanging there. Open the pipe, the oxygen pipe, that the government is opening up. They open it more quickly, so that.
What is that oxygen pipe quickly? What is that one thing that you expect government?
Address the monetary policy issues that we have. Forex is a big issue for businesses.
Right.
Some level of inconsistency in policy. We have the forex forward policy that we are currently engaging the CBN.
Right.
Address the regulatory, the contradictions in regulatory environment. Those will create more relief for organized businesses.
So interest rates and those other things. But quickly, I need to take Dr. Ofe's final thoughts on this. We have about less than 30 seconds to close. Delta is one of those states that did not receive any foreign investments between Q2 2023 and Q2 2024, amongst other states. If you were to say in 30 seconds, what is the outlook for the coming year?
Well, FDI stimulates growth and increases development, and Delta State, for instance, is working very hard to improve those records that you've just mentioned. It's unfortunate that we have it like that. We have the potential to be one of the largest economies in sub-Saharan Africa, even as a state. So, and we're tapping into that potential very seriously. And I look forward to a promise in 2025 that those records through the NBS will definitely change. So there is hope in the horizon, because the people are going to start feeling the impact of the current infrastructural development that is massively taking place in all nooks and crannies of the states currently. All
right, Dr. Sonny Ofe, Executive Assistant to Delta State Governor on External Relations and Diaspora Affairs, thank you so much for your time, as well as Mr. Wale Smatoyoride, DG NECA. Thank you, and wish you 2025 where you breathe very well.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we've come to the end of today's show. I know we have some feedback from our audience. Is it something we can take before we run, Kayla?
I think they say we can take the one from Tom. Let me see what Tom is saying. Tom Egbele, thank you for your message. He says, we talk FDIs day in, day out, but the impact of their presence is not felt. Why is it so? A very important question there. Why is it so? And I think they will find that this year, we have seen a situation where many times we've brought up issues on this program, and we have seen a response from government. We've seen policy change as a result of complaints that we've made, and the response has been fantastic, but it does need to get a little bit better. The reason why current affairs programs exist, and the reason why we keep speaking and speaking and speaking on these matters, is because we want to be able to see that change, and that is a change that we hope that we get in 2025. And we'll be here to watch and see how it all unfolds. But thank you all very much for being with us all year. Tuning in every morning, sending messages, prayers, everything. We thank you all so much. And we'll be here to do it again in 2025. Have a great end of the year. Celebrate carefully. Be mindful. And God keep us. I'm Kayla Megwa. Have a great new year.
And I'm Kaido Kikilu. Thank you for watching. See you in 2025. Goodbye.